much for being here. I will call to order this meeting of the Bend Metropolitan Planning Organization. How about we go around the room with introductions to start? Megan, would you start?
Megan Perkins, Bend City Councilor.
Bill Jenny, Deschutes County Commissioner.
Jenny M. Barker, Growth Management, City of Bend.
Tyler Deaky, Bend MPO, staff.
Greg Bryant, in Deschutes River Woods, and also on that.
Bob Townsend, ODOT Area Manager.
And I'm Barb Campbell. I serve on the Bend City Council as well as being chair of the Bend MPO. How about online? Hovey,
Yes.
is that you there? Could you
I
take us through who's online?
Yep. I am online as well, Hobie Anderson, MPO staff. And then online we have Rick Williams with ODOT, David Abbas with the City of Bend, Chris Doty with Deschutes County, and Cameron Prow, Tech Right 2. Cameron, you have your hand up.
I just want to make sure our recording is on.
I got it going. We're set.
Thank you.
Thank you for checking. All right.
Thank you, Hovey. Thank you, Cameron. Tyler, could we turn up the volume in this room a little bit, please? Thank you. And then Hovey will take us through agenda item number 2.
Yes, I will. So in-person attendees and hybrid meeting attendees, it's best to state your name when we're having conversations so that those online can follow along. The meetings are recorded and also on YouTube live and later. So please check in if you need to see what we talked about. Also, closed captioning option is available on for in-person through the TV if we'd like, or also for anyone online. I think that's it. Raise your hand if you need me.
That's great. Thank you, Hovey. Agenda item number 3 is public comment. Have we got anyone here who would like to make any comment to the board today? There are no actual hands. I don't see any virtual hands.
No hands
So-
online.
Okay, thanks, Hovey. So we can go ahead and move on to item number 4, which is our meeting minutes. We're looking for a motion to approve the December 13th policy board meeting minutes.
Move approval of December 13th policy board minutes as presented.
Thank you. We've got a motion from Councilor Perkins and a second from Commissioner Chang. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Excellent. That takes us to item number 5. And these are our community member advisory committee appointments. Tyler, would you like to introduce this item?
Hovey, did you have a?
Yeah, I just have one question, or not a question, just I was just notifying you that Doreen Ty and David Amerton have arrived. Doreen may have a public comment, so during the meeting, if she has anything, maybe we can ask for her comment. And you can raise your hand, Doreen, if you do want to comment. Thank you. That was all.
We do have another opportunity for public comment at the end of this meeting. And so we'll make sure to look for you, Doreen, and anyone else that might be arriving during our meeting. That's great. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. So that will get us to number 5. And Tyler, do you want to take us through this one?
Yeah, I'll start off and then I'll turn it over to you in just a moment. So we have on both our budget committee and our technical advisory committee, we have community members that are members of both of those committees. Right now, we have one committee or one community member opening on the technical advisory committee and one community member opening on the budget committee. We, Hobie, through a series of different ways, provided notice of those vacancies through some news releases, through the city's website, emails to all of our interested parties, and then also just communication here at our past 2 or 3 policy board meetings. Through that process, we received the following applicants for the committee openings. We had 3 folks apply for the technical committee member opening, and so we had Richard Ross, Luca Posey, and Greg Bryce apply for that one opening. And then on the budget committee, we had Aaron Sealer apply for that position. And so after we closed the application period, we met with both Chair Campbell and Councilor Perkins last week, I believe.
I'm in 2 weeks.
I'm losing track of time here.
In the past.
Yeah, sometime in the last 2 weeks, we met and had them, we reviewed the applications with them. And the recommendation that came out of that discussion was recommending Aaron to serve on the budget committee and Greg to serve another term on the TAC. So with that, I think there's this discussion for the rest of the board to see if they have any questions or comments about that process that's taking place.
Megan, is there anything you'd like to say?
No.
That's great. Question?
I got a question. Are there additional cycles, like is this, you've got one seat on the TAC right now, and then it'll be another cycle in a year or 2 years or something like that, where someone else.
Yeah, so I should back up a little bit. So we have on the budget committee, we have the 5 board members here and 5 local residents. And so those 5 residents are on staggered either 2 or 3 year terms. And so we'll have another budget committee opening
This
later.
summer.
Yeah, this summer. And then the technical committee has 2 local residents on it. So we will make one appointment now, that other position will be open in the fall.
One of the things that we talked about, I don't know if now is the right time, but because the budget committee only meets once.
Yeah.
Right, does it make sense to have someone be on the budget committee that could also be on the TAC, right? If I'm remembering the conversation correctly.
Correct.
Might be a little bit more appealing to someone who want to serve, they can be more involved.
That's right. And then the kind of opposite side to that coin is wanting to get maybe someone who doesn't have experience and hasn't been involved, allow someone, an opportunity to become more involved in their own government. Yes. Certainly something that is always a consideration for me and came up, during those interviews. Thank you, Megan.
That requires a bylaw change or something.
Yes, it would. So we could consider, actually, one of the applicants for the technical advisory committee had suggested that any community member that's assigned to the technical advisory committee would be serving on the budget committee during their term, which made sense. Then we would still have 3 other community members that could serve on the budget committee. So that could be an option to update our bylaws to include that idea.
Then the other thing that I will mention that was a consideration is the fact that although we are a single city MPO, our boundary is not the same as City of Bend, UGB or city limits. We actually do include other communities, really. We include Tumalo and Deschutes River Woods. And, wanting to be mindful of that, we were happy that we have Greg applying to be on our technical advisory committee, because Greg does live in Deschutes River Woods. And so, for me anyway, I do think that's, be mindful of that. So that was what, for myself, the only thing I might think to mention. And we were going to recommend Aaron, and Aaron, if you're listening, I hope I said your name right, Aaron Seller, to serve on our budget committee. And then we're recommending that Greg Bryant continue on and serve on our technical advisory committee. And with that, I would just look for a motion. I think we need 2 separate motions, maybe. one for the Technical Advisory Committee first. Anyone would like to make that motion?
Go ahead, Phil.
Move approval of Greg Bryant to serve a 3-year term on the technical advisory.
Great, we have a motion from Commissioner Chang and a second from Councilor Perkins for Greg Bryant to serve another 3-year term on the Technical Advisory Committee. All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hands, and that's unanimous. And Greg is with us here today, and I will offer our thanks to you. You've been so involved and we really appreciate. We appreciate that you are almost always here for these meetings as well and can provide that back and forth between the two. So thanks so much, Greg. We appreciate you. And then we look for a motion for the Budget Committee.
I move approval of Aaron Saylor to serve a 3-year term on the Budget Committee.
Second.
Excellent. We've got a motion from Councilor Perkins and a second from Commissioner Chang to appoint Aaron Zeller to serve on our Budget Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hands. That's unanimous. That's great. Thank you so much. Item number 6, yes.
Before we leave that, I mean,
Of course.
before we leave that discussion of expanding opportunities to participate, I guess the question is, are we gonna make that bylaw change to kind of have that cross budget committee, technical advisory committee opportunity to become available?
As staff, I can start the conversation while Tyler's muted. We can, actually, it's probably a good time if you make a motion to create we didn't write a motion for you, but if you created a motion and that passed, we could review the bylaw changes to add that language. And we do have another round to take our bylaw changes for a 30-day notice for the previous year. In November, we sent them out and had a couple comments back. So we do need to resend them to the group, the 3 jurisdictions for review again. So that could be timely if we would like to do that.
The other thing I asked about is if it doesn't diminish the efficiency and functionality of the tap, is there an opportunity to add additional seats? And one of the reasons I'm asking when you were talking about kind of the geographic boundaries of the MPO, we have had the counties have tremendous interest from Tumalo to have representation on our planning commission. And people were kind of pushing, like, hey, we need a Tumalo seat on the planning commission so that they can weigh in on stuff like the roundabout and X, Y, and Z. And I said, the planning commission has nothing to do with that roundabout. That there's people from Tumalo who are really engaging on transportation issues. It seems like this actually would be a great place for them to plug in. And that would, we do get a tremendous amount of benefit by having someone not from the incorporated city serve on the TAC. And, like if it was if it didn't impact the functionality or efficiency of the TAC, adding more seats to perspectives.
Yeah, and that's something we can definitely look into. I mean, I think we can, well, I guess first, we can look into it. I'd like to see what some of the other MPOs around the state, how they address that. That's something we can bring back instead of just an update at our next, either in February or March.
Phil, are you saying that you would actually to be geographic restricted seats?
I don't know if we want to go so far as to have zones, but I mean, maybe if you went to 4 seats on the TAC, you could say, and 2 of these should be from outside the city and two
Yeah.
inside or something like that.
I see Tyler
Do some
is
research.
right. Thank you so much. And I do think an official motion just to ask, we'll make a motion that staff is going to prepare. Is gonna just start this process. Is that what we're looking for, Tyler, Opie?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and if we want to do the bylaw change right now, a motion to change the bylaws so that the TAC members would also serve as a budget committee member.
I,
Two motions or?
2 motions.
that would be 2. One is just expand the TAC. And the second is to change the representations of TAC to inside and outside the city. Would that be the 2?
Oh, and then the kind of budget person. Yeah.
Right, yes, that's where we started. That's right. So I think it's actually 2 is budget versus expanding TAC. Is that right?
Maybe that's the first.
Yeah, so let's start with the budget. Okay, do you want to try and make that motion for us, Mr. J?
Move to expand the functions of budget committee members within the MPO to include serving on BTAC as well. Does that sound right? I think
I'll
so.
second it if.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we want the vice versa? Do we want?
I think it's the other way. Yeah,
Oh.
TAC to serve on the budget.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, move to expand the functions of one TAC committee member,
I think we're gonna,
also serve on the budget committee.
I think we'll make it so that all TAC members
Okay.
going forward are also on the budget committee.
Correct.
Okay, move to expand the function of all TAC members serving for the MPO to also serve on the budget committee.
Second.
And and I'm sorry, I think what we're asking, we're moving for staff to prepare that motion for us to consider at the next meeting. Is that right, Tyler? Or can we just make this decision right now and just decide that, folks?
I think for ease, I mean, I guess I'm thinking you can just direct us to do it and not have to
Great.
do a formal motion, but, oh, am I missing something?
No, it's just if they do a motion, then we don't have to bring the bylaw changes to them to approve before we do the 30-day notice. It's just a semantic, so we should be fine either way.
Okay.
And when is the
We-
budget committee meeting?
We don't
March
have a
or
date yet,
April.
but it'll be March or April, late March to mid-April.
So we have the 30
We have
days.
some time.
Absolutely.
So maybe we just give you direct.
Yes, yeah, that's the easiest.
Yeah. That sounds good.
All motions are withdrawn.
Commissioner Chai.
Like, put him through his paces. This is what happens if you miss meetings, Belle.
Hail around and then.
Thank you so much. No, these are very important changes. I'm glad we're talking through this. Okay, staff, do you have an idea of what you're going to do and what's gonna happen?
Yes, we have our orders.
That's great. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to item number 6. Great. Oh, great. Okay, this is the Oregon MPO Consortium legislative priorities. And Tyler, do you want to go ahead and start us off on this?
Sure. So we talked.
Cameron has a question too, and just before we
Sure.
start, maybe I want to make sure.
Yes, I do. I heard several attempts at a motion for item number 5, and I wanted to know what the final wording was on that.
We ended up just withdrawing that motion entirely, Cameron.
Okay,
And yeah, direction of staff now instead of a motion.
okay, so you're directing staff to do what?
To-
Overhaul the charter to add functions to technical advisory committee members and also to look at expanding the TAC.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. We appreciate you, even though we can't see your face. All right, that gets us to number 6. Legislative priorities. Tyler, would you like to?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 parts to this. We brought this item to you in November, I believe, and walked through it. I've just condensed that discussion that we had in November. Just wanted to make sure that that the policy board is okay, that I captured everything correctly. So we could then, when the Oregon MPO consortium next meet, Chair Campbell can communicate this board's preferences up to that group. Then I thought you also wanted to talk about just any other local priorities that you wanted to bring up, if I remember correctly. So,
Sure.
so I'll just walk through what I have up here first. And so what you see on the screen are some of the priorities we discussed in November, and in parentheses afterwards, it indicates who or where those priorities have come from. And so LOC is League of Oregon Cities, OMPOC, that's the Oregon MPO Consortium, and then AOC is Association of Oregon Counties. And so the things that we talked about in November were expanding photo radar to all cities. And I know that's an issue that I believe the city of Bend is fairly supportive of at this point, and that the city's lobbyist is tracking. Increasing flexibility for local speed setting authority. That is something that's been discussed. That is a process that has been slowly kind of gaining momentum over the last 5 or 6 years, I think, to the last 3 or 4 legislative sessions. Increasing funding for the Safe Routes to Schools program, expanding the Great Streets program, and that's a relatively new ODOT program that's really focused on upgrades, particularly safety upgrades to ODOT-owned roadways that go through cities and towns. So it's providing bike and pedestrian infrastructure, that type of thing. Sustainable funding to preserve the state fund exchange program. That's, I think most everybody's pretty familiar with that. And that's a fairly hot topic, I think, at the moment. And then the last one was something that we just Chris Doty briefly discussed, and that's just providing some additional authority for counties to recover fees for permits issued for utility work within county-owned right-of-ways. This slide shows the other issue we discussed, funding to address ODOT's operations and because of budgets shortfalls. ODOT's looking at a pretty significant budget issue come 2025, I believe. So 2025 going forward, they're going to be into a negative cash flow situation. Essentially, it would mean they have to scale back their operations and maintenance budget pretty significantly going into 2025 going forward. Funding for the I-5 bridge replacement project. That was on the draft Oregon MPO consortium list. And something to note, I put check marks on here where I heard support, in our last board meeting. You'll know that the I-5 bridge one, I don't recall there being support from this group. So I left that off, but I wanted to make sure I was good with that. Then in November, there were quite a few different funding proposals that were pitched or shown at that time. So I just consolidated those down to this list here. So funding for, multimodal transportation projects, funding for the planning that's going to be required to meet the new climate rules, funding for transportation projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which kind of ties back to multimodal transportation projects, funding for safety projects, transportation system resiliency, and that's really dealing more with fire and flooding types of issues, and then increasing transit access throughout not only the MPO area, but throughout the state. Is there anything else on here? Did you have anything? You want to help me borrow?
No, you're doing great, Tyler. And I will tell you all, this is kind of why I dragged you in here today. It's probably going to be a pretty short meeting. But we're the only MPO in the state that's on the I-97 corridor instead of on I-5. And I really did want to get comments from our MPO to take over to OMPOC. I'm the chair of OMPOC this year, and I would like OMPOC to use our voice and, actually decide on legislative priorities for OMPOC and see if we can get that group to, again, with OMPOC, we represent the vast majority of people in the entire state. But again, we're the only MPO that's over here. So maybe you can hear me steering discussion toward that bridge. If we could have more than just, we don't like that, it's a whole lot of money, maybe more specific comments on that in particular, because I can tell you, the MPO reps from Portland are absolutely talking, they're making sure to use their voice in favor of this project. Maybe we could be more specific about our concerns about it. So there you are. How about it? Shall we just start off with that one? I-5 bridge.
Fact that it's
What's that?
$1 billion.
It's $1 billion over budget. I mean,
Okay, from the public, I'm just asking, how much is it estimated to be?
Oh,
And I know it started out at like a half a billion, now it's over $1 billion or something.
yeah. Like that. I don't know the exact.
But, and how long is it gonna be for it to go through? I mean, I'm
I don't have any specifics on the cost estimates, but, there's no funding for it, so it's only cleared to go so far right now until funding is identified.
okay, so number one concern is just the cost, for myself, it's kind of right there on that page where I would take the money from the I-5 bridge and put it to all of those other things. For me, it's that operations and maintenance problem in the city, in the county, in the state, in our entire country, that has just been so much in the forefront of my life on council that, for me, it really is the money. Where else could the money go? There are just so many other needs. So, and then I'm concerned, well, I ask you and then I start talking. My concern is the part of the project that's not the bridge, the extension up into Washington State and then down into Oregon. My understanding is this is not just this bridge replacement, it's more of a corridor project, including part of the freeway up in Washington State and in Oregon. Am I right about that? Does anybody know? Do we think?
I mean, it's still only things that are triggered by the bridge replacement. So
Oh, okay.
obviously there's, probably miles of the transition on the Washington side just for ramps, auxiliary ways, connection points, but and elevation differences that will result in the new bridge. But it's not supposed to add scope beyond what's needed for the bridge replacement at the ends.
Okay, so that,
I mean, that's now,
of course, yeah.
that's not when washed out wants to add funds only if we'll do X, Y, and Z, or the same could be said from ODOT too.
Or could we pull the geographic equity card? I mean, all of these projects that I see, priorities are statewide, MPO. And then you've got
The bridge.
Is there a way, I know we said we're the only ones that are on that corridor,
Right,
is there a way to pull that though and say that it doesn't align with all of the rest of these priorities?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, another way to frame it would be, I mean, there's a lot of political power in Portland.
Yeah.
So, I mean, rather than fighting it.
Right.
Just say, I support pursuing this as long as.
Yeah.
All the different priorities are, are adequately funded, because these are of statewide significant, these affect everybody in the state. Not just, the metro area. Just. Keep that as opposed to block,
Mhm.
money from going to, to the I-5 bridge. So I don't think,
We're not gonna win that
I don't
battle.
think playing,
Yeah.
playing tug of war is not gonna be effective, but.
Thank you.
Just kind of like drafting off of that.
Yeah.
To get a big transportation package that includes all the other high priorities. That is strategy. Okay.
Thank you. And Tyler, I see you capturing thoughts. Is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you. I'm just listening here, I'm not writing. Thank you. Yes, that's absolutely how I'm seeing this is, it's that yes, and, trying for, we're not just straight up opposed to the entire idea. It's, we're opposed to all of the fun, just sucking funds away from everything. Yeah, great. And then the other comment I had is, I do still believe that, part of this project is getting light rail over the river, which is something I personally am a big supporter of, so it's really not as simple as yes or no, but, for me anyway. And
Well, there you go, you're adding a couple $100 million to.
It's the in and out depends. I mean, some people don't want, don't want it, and then some people do.
I mean, and I will, I want to just admit, I was not really paying attention the first time around. It's, kind of my impressions as a citizen, but first time around, I really did feel like that the light rail was a big problem. I don't want to describe that as a problem, but that's part of why it fell apart, was disagreement about light rail. And the other oversimplification of my memory is, just too big. It was Washington State and Oregon State and the river and Vancouver and Portland. And that's just too many different agencies, and scaled down for that reason alone might make it simpler to get through. But Mr. Townsend has reassured me on that it's not a corridor, it's just what is necessary to make the bridge work,
Yeah,
is
they've been
why it
pretty-
includes.
I say that now, but I mean, they're
Of course.
pretty careful not to add scope that could be scrutinized beyond what the bridge is would require. But then, to your point, people are advocating about rapid transit instead of light rail. I mean, there's so many moving pieces. I mean, there's certainly a scenario proposed now that's different, but I would just go back, and not as an ODOT representative, because I don't want any bosses to be on the line about this, but certainly this regional or geographic equity that we use about, I mean, if this happens, it's going to get 75% of its funding from the feds. There's just no way that both states can contribute, but then it's whatever we contribute, whether it's 300, 500 million, that's a region one component. It does have value to the state system, right? Because you talk to truck people on 97, they get hung up in Portland, but how does it, these other programs that we talk about increasing funding, then is there a geographical component for equity to them, which now there isn't. It's just on the merits of the project. So sometimes that benefits us because we've got more than our fair share, but I think that's the discussion point, like how do you balance equity if ODOT's putting 300 million to that, then what's the rest of the region get?
Or
Your state, sorry.
framing it as a package, like that bridge plus these things at these amounts, and if you're gonna squeeze this package, we want you to squeeze it all.
Squeeze it all.
Like, want to knock the whole package down by 20%, you can knock 20% off every single one of these things, but not. Not just, oh, we can't do it all, so we're gonna chop these.
No, I think that's
And
the
go
key
in
is the
and-
transparency, like, hey, we're putting 400 million to this, where is it coming? Are we having, a special gas tax, vehicle mile, is it coming at the expense of our fix it program or something? I think that's one of the keys here, that even internal of that, it's hard for us to figure where that would.
Great.
Carla, can you remind me, because November seems like so very long ago, we talked a little about the Compaq's lobbyist or who they would be using and how.
Yeah.
Because I see some of these are also LSC and AOC, and we know they have, kind of know our lobbyist for the city of Bend will be doing a lot of work, but.
Yeah, I think one of the things when I talked to Chair Campbell about this is that Ompok doesn't have a lobbyist.
Yeah.
In the past, they've done. In the past, Ompok really relied upon Metro's lobbyist, their main lobbyist, and the person who was there at that time, he was very good at kind of working with Ompok and taking their views up and helping organize meetings with Ompok elected officials to meet with, key state legislators. That in the past, we don't really know who's going to be doing that right now. I think the intention, the next Ompok meeting is scheduled for February 3rd. Part of that meeting is to discuss these priorities, but also I think to talk about how can that group as a statewide group be more effectively engaged. So it's not just a few one-off. It's the Metro is doing their thing and somebody else is doing their thing. So I think at that meeting, we're trying to get Metro's new lobbying staff engaged, and we've also invited our chancellor to be engaged in that. And we may get somebody from Eugene area as well, and hopefully have more of a cohesive voice for that group.
All right. Any other comments on any of these other priorities?
A quick question.
Of course, sure.
If someone could explain in 2 sentences what photo radar thing is.
Good question.
It doesn't have to be one.
It's, oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say certain, it's photo enforced radar where, unmanned or unoccupied stations, right? You can take a picture of a license plate, your speed and enforce a ticket. Most cities in the state of Oregon don't allow that as a ticket opportunity. So it has to be additional language in the statute added.
Yeah. The only place that can do it right now with without a person present, is the city of Portland. I believe. The city of Portland has 6 or 7 of those photo stations up on some of their key. They have them on corridors and they've had a lot of crash activity over the years. Some cities, I think under current state statute, city of Bend could potentially do it, but the radar machinery needs to have a person with it while it's doing it. So it kind of takes away. It's cumbersome to the point you're not gonna have, police officer in the van or in the vehicle taking the photo, so it kind of defeats the purpose. I think the intention is to the flexibility that Portland has is to start expanding that, scaling that up on a statewide basis so that others want to do it.
Also, John, it's a, from an equity standpoint, that's really people takes away sort of some of that discretion that often happens sometimes in a negative way.
Right.
People in red sports cars.
As I can.
Yeah, right. But
Somebody else.
I find it interesting because a lot of states and cities removing like red light cameras. and stuff, because, usually they partner up to a third party that's just trying to make revenue. So you buy a ticket, you have to go to the city. So.
Yeah, it's a bit, and there's still that's kind of those are 2 distinct things. It's the speed enforcement versus red light. And the red light issue is there's that issue of third parties making a lot of money off of using their software, and then the crash statistics change too with red light running cameras that you end up with a lot more rear end crashes typically, where those are a lot of these people are
Slamming on the
Yeah,
brakes.
I'm on the brakes, trying to, so they don't want to get tickets that are paying someone. So, I mean, it's kind of, that's kind of, the red light camera thing's kind of a mixed bag, it's based on the data types.
Thank you.
But we don't dislike it enough that we want to pull it off this list, that it's fine with us. Yeah, great. Any other comments? If I were gonna put them in order, I think it's that fund exchange. I think we've discussed this in meetings in the past. I think we all agree, even if it's not a concern for us, it's absolutely everyone in the state, everywhere. And we've got to focus on that. Yeah. All right. Anything else you'd like us to bring up? I mean,
The city uses the local fund exchange.
the city is applying to be a fund exchanger, and Phil, I'm not sure where we are in that process.
To do its own.
Exactly.
To the federal interest.
That's exactly right, Phil. That's why Megan and I don't have complete panic looks in our eyes when it comes to this fund exchange thing. But we're panicked when we think about driving to Madras or to Pine Hill, and what if they're not able to do this? Yeah, so. Any other thoughts, concerns? No? Okay, thank you all. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And that brings us to number 7. Other business. Anyone like to mention anything for future meetings? Any concerns? You can always reach out to myself or Tyler or Hovey if there's any issue, concern you'd like to be discussed in one of our meetings. And our next regular meeting of the policy board is January 17th. That will be at noon. Oops, it will be a month from today. Thank you. I'm just reading the words.
February.
Thank you. 21st at noon. Lunch will be provided if you're with us in person. And that gets us to another opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make a comment to the Bend Metropolitan Planning Organization?
Yes, please.
Sir,
I almost got into my
go
second.
ahead and introduce
So
yourself.
my name is John Gillen.
Thank
I almost got into my second accident over by Market of Choice, and I was reminded of the accident breakdown sheet from the last meeting. And I remember at the time looking at where those green dots were all located and being like, oh, like this is where people are going through the old neighborhood to try and cross to get onto 97 to go left, to go wherever. And that's part of it. The 2 accidents I almost got into were people on the right-hand lane, not realizing it's a one-way street and turning left in front of me to try and get into the grocery store. So I just thought that that little personal anecdote might help. I don't know. It just happened like right before I got here.
I have heard that anecdote about people not knowing it's one way
Yes,
for years, frankly.
and I only mentioned it because it happened twice in the last week with me. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, what the heck is going on? So
Uh-huh.
is that fine first?
Sure, exactly. Don't just,
First one, California plates, second one was Oregon plates. So
yeah.
could not be. Yeah.
So thank you. You know, it's something I heard about a lot, kind of when Market of Choice first opened.
Yeah.
And wasn't sure if we resolved it or not. John, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for that comment. Anyone else for public comment today?
I don't see anyone online indicating they would like to have public comment.
I'm just giving them a beat because I know that
Yep.
there are people online today, or there were. All right. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. I really would like to make these priorities a priority and, you know, use our voice more effectively in this room as well as at on Fox. So thank you all for participating and being here, and we are adjourned. Oh, I know, right?
Expanding your power circle.
Oh.